This is Bishop Michael Burbidge, and you are listening to the Walk Humbly Podcast.
Welcome to the Walk Humbly Podcast. I'm Billy Atwell, Chief Communications Officer for the Diocese and your co-host. You know, every time we do this podcast, it's hard not to think about the people who have given to the Bishop's Lenten Appeal because it's made this possible. It's made the equipment possible, the facilities, all of these things. So to those who gave to the Bishop's Lenten Appeal this last year, we just want to say thank you so much for doing that. If you are listening on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever, please rate this podcast, write a review wherever you can. And if you're listening on YouTube, certainly subscribe to our YouTube channel and ring the notifications bell also. A lot of the head of the spear, so to speak, the key information that we want to communicate to the faithful, really important news, is sent first via email. So please sign up for our e-newsletter at arlingtondiocese.org. You can also follow Bishop Burbidge on Twitter at Bishop Burbidge. Every day he writes a short reflection on the gospel of that day. Make sure you follow the diocese on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And send your questions for Bishop Burbidge to info@arlingtondiocese.org or give us a call at 703-831-7013. And also, as I mentioned in last podcast, Bishop Burbidge is inviting everybody in the diocese to join him this Sunday, November 21st at 4 p.m. at St. Thomas More Cathedral for Solemn Vespers, which is evening prayer, to kick off the beginning of our 50th anniversary of our diocese, the preparatory period leading us to that Golden Jubilee. Again, to learn more about the Jubilee, go to jubilee.arlingtondiocese.org. I welcome your host, Bishop Burbidge. Bishop, how are you doing?
I am doing well. Billy, thank you for mentioning the Vespers on the Solemnity of Christ the King that we will be celebrating at 4 o'clock this Sunday at Cathedral. I really do, if anyone has the opportunity to be present. We don't often have that chance to pray together the prayer of the church, the beautiful evening prayer, which will be sung and will be a beautiful celebration. And as you mentioned, beginning our preparation period for 2024, when we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary, beginning this Sunday with a year's focus on the Holy Eucharist. So I hope many people can attend. It's a unique celebration for many people, maybe the first time they participate in Vespers, but I know it'll be very prayerful and a spiritually enriching celebration for them.
And it's good for kids, too, because they can read along and join
Sure.
you. It's something different than Mass. They'll see another liturgy than
right.
Sunday Mass, which is good.
But there'll still be a homily.
All right, Bishop, I'm surprised you have as much energy as you do because you're coming right out of a long week of the Fall General Assembly of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. It's the first in-person meeting you've had in quite a while, and a lot was accomplished. And most newsworthy for most is the development and the passage of the teaching document on the Eucharist. Now that that's a completed document, if you would give a summary, we've talked about it before on this podcast, but give it kind of a summary of how this came to be and what you hope it will do.
Well, sure, Billy. Before I begin that, if I could just say, you're right, that our assembly, this was really the first time that the bishops have gathered in real time in almost 2 years. And there was really a wonderful spirit. We were very happy to see each other. You know, bishops need to be with bishops, and we've really missed not being together. So there was a great spirit throughout the week. What was really unique about this year is that we decided that our meetings generally begin first thing Monday morning, 9 o'clock. What we decided to do this year, and I hope in all the years moving forward, is that we devoted the morning, on Monday morning, to mostly a day of a morning of recollection. So we began in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament, all the bishops, with morning prayer. There was a beautiful reflection offered by Archbishop Kurtz. We had a holy hour. Confessions were available throughout this time period. We prayed the rosary together, and we concluded with benediction. And then we had lunch, and then we moved into the meeting room at 2 o'clock. And from that moment, from 2 o'clock when we started our meeting, we began in a very serene, peaceful way. There was no doubt that the fruits of beginning our meeting with such prayer were very much of it reflected. in our conversations for the next few hours on Monday and throughout the week. So I would like to just assure our listeners that your prayers were felt. My brother bishops and I knew you were praying for us, and we really know that the Holy Spirit was at work. And I'm really grateful for many people who told me that they were praying for me and my brother bishops, and we felt those prayers and very much appreciate them. We had a lot of work to do. And of course, as you mentioned, at the center of our work was the final discussion on the document on the Holy Eucharist, drafted by the Doctrine Committee, the mystery of the Eucharist in the life of the Church. The initial discussion on the draft that we received in June, many people will recall that even though it was by Zoom, there was lots of debate, and lots of positions going back and forth in a feisty, I would say, but in a respectful manner. And one of the things that came out of the June meeting was we need more time.
Right.
And so for the first time since I've been a bishop, we scheduled regional meetings in the summer where, about 30 or so bishops in a region continued to speak on the document, to offer suggestions and amendments. Now, all that was gathered from the regional meetings was sent to the Doctrine Committee, over hundreds of pages, I was told by the chair of the committee. So that, and it pointed to the fact that all the bishops were very engaged in this process. And then, having received them, we received another draft, and then all the bishops prior to September were free to make amendments that the committee would consider. And then again in November, the final discussion. So by the time we got to the November meeting, as much input and collaboration as possible was allowed for. And as many have seen and have heard, when it came to the floor for a vote, it was almost unanimous in accepting the document. But it was a document that evolved through listening to one another, through discussion, to debate. So in the beginning, a little bit more give and take because we weren't quite there yet. But I mean, to have a vote that we did shows that I think what was intended was accomplished. And I think, Billy, what's important to remember is that this document was already part of our strategic plan.
That's right. You mentioned that in one of the press conferences. I think a lot of people had forgotten that. They thought it was more of a modern idea or like a really current idea that came out from something else. Explain that a little bit.
So part of our strategic plan, for the next several years included, a renewal on the beauty of the Eucharist and our teaching. So part of that would include such a document. We are also, which was part of the bishops' meeting too, planning a Eucharistic revival throughout the United States. Like, how can we, which was at the heart of this document, how can we fill people with a sense of Eucharistic reverence and wonder and awe for the most precious gift of the Holy Eucharist and what takes place at the holy sacrifice of the Mass and who it is that we receive in Holy Communion? Because we are convinced that if people, believed and embraced fully that in the gift of the Holy Eucharist is truly and really and substantially contained the very body and blood of Jesus Christ, then all of us would want to be at Mass. All of us would want to be able to receive this most precious gift. And so that Eucharistic revival is going to end in 2024 in a national Eucharistic Congress in Indianapolis with every diocese represented. So this document is just one part of a bigger piece of trying to reignite in people a firm belief in the real presence, who it is we receive in the gift of the Holy Eucharist, and the one who nourishes us so that we may bring his presence into the world.
And this didn't come out of nowhere, so to speak, right? There was studies, I think it was Pew that did a survey, and it was revealed that many Catholics don't believe in the real presence. Was that part of the origins of this document and the need to reteach the Eucharist?
There were two other. That would be one, and there's another one. That would be one. That Pew study, certainly, was a little alarming. We are going to do another study though, because not that we're denying that those results are of concern, but I think sometimes. It's any research project. The questions asked, the way they're asked.
The methodology is key.
So we've engaged another study and trying to make sure that is exactly. Because it's hard to believe, I don't know, that, I think, Catholics, have that understanding of the real presence. So, but we're going to take a look at it.
Yeah.
It's just like, you get a second opinion. The other concern, which is reality, is one thing we do know is that the percentage of people coming, this is even pre-pandemic, the number of people coming to Mass on a weekly basis is significantly low.
Which would reveal that devotion to the Eucharist, at the very least, is decreasing,
right?
And that's something that needs to be revived,
right? And understanding, how essential our participation is, and that's pre-pandemic. So getting people back to be part of the communion, the body of Christ, being present for the celebration, the holy sacrifice of the Mass, and actually receiving the body and blood of Jesus Christ. So those numbers, even in our own diocese right now, are of concern.
Yeah.
So I think it's safe to say that, nationally, we're talking, it's under 30%.
Yeah.
And so that's a concern. So we're trying this Eucharistic revival and renewal. This letter is just one part of what we're trying to do. In our own diocese, we're kicking off Eucharistic.
That's right. I was going to bring this up.
And it's focused on the Eucharist.
Yeah. So the beginning of the Jubilee, the first year is remember. So it's remembering our past, but also do this remembrance of me. So it's themed in the Eucharist.
And Billy, could I say too that one thing that I know that the media has covered, from the beginning, and no matter how many times we have tried to say it, is that this was never a document meant to single out an individual or groups of individuals and who or who should not receive communion. It was never meant to do that. So I really would encourage, as I often do to our faithful, is please read the document.
Yeah.
The document is readily available on the USCCB website. It's not that long. And sometimes we make a mistake if we just read headlines or we just read blogs and things like that. I would really want, before people make any judgments of what the bishops did or did not do, I would really encourage them to take their time to read the document. And those who want to go deeper into the document, the footnotes to the catechism and canons of the church, they're all there. But we didn't want to include them all within the document. But the references are there. Mm-hmm. But read the document. Yeah. And I think what you'll see is that, again, pointing to the gift of the Holy Eucharist, but also the fact that none of us, in a sense, are off the hook here. Mm-hmm. The Eucharist calls each and every person to look at himself, to look at herself, to make sure that we're living a Eucharistic life, that in approaching the Blessed Sacrament, that we're not in a state of grave mortal sin, that we have not separated ourselves from the church, and that we're in communion with her, to look at deep within ourselves. And certainly that goes for all of us, in any state of life. Bishops are not off the hook with this document. Bishops are told to work to remedy any situation where there might be a sense of scandal, in the reception of Holy Communion. So that will require us, which has been going on for a long time and continues, for us to engage people, whether it be politicians, whether it be people in Catholic healthcare or others who are, public, to have conversations and dialogues with them. But you don't make that public because they are part of the faithful. Right. So if I engage someone in my diocese to say, hey, or a pastor engages someone in his parish and say, hey, listen, can we talk about this? It doesn't mean now I go and announce that to the whole parish or to the whole diocese. So I think it's helpful if people would, if the good people of God would understand that maybe you don't see it or hear about it. It doesn't mean that bishops are not engaging to really work to avoid any such scandal. But don't forget, it all begins with ourselves. We're all called to a deeper conversion, and the Eucharist nourishes us, to experience that transformation in our lives.
And you've mentioned before that more conversations happen behind the scenes than people recognize,
Definitely.
right? And that's an obligation and a responsibility and a privilege even of a bishop to help walk people closer to God, especially when they're astray on very, very fundamental issues, especially key moral issues. I would imagine, I'm going to speculate for a moment, that pointing to encyclicals or documents that are decades old or hundreds of years old might not be as effective as someone who's fallen away from the practice and knowledge of the faith. Is it helpful to be able to point to a modern document like you have here and say the bishops in the country voted almost unanimously for this, and to have this text, does that assist you as a bishop in guiding those souls closer?
And that's what this document is meant to do, right? It's meant to say, okay, now we have this document. Now, how can we make it how can we apply it? What applications can we use? How can we break it down for our young people? For example, I mean, one of the a great example in this document, we're trying to use individuals who inspire us. So number 52 in the document is very popular. Blessed Carlo Acutis, a young Italian teenager.
He's extremely popular amongst high schoolers.
So many of our young people are taking his confirmation name, which I'm thrilled.
Oh, that's interesting.
So he died at the age of 15 and was beatified in 2020, right? So 15, right? And he used to say, the Eucharist is my highway to heaven. And because it was the center of his life, he attended Mass daily, prayed before the Blessed Sacrament. He discovered the joy of friendship with Jesus and brought that joy to others. And he said this, to always be united with Christ. This is my life's program. And so we're trying to say, okay, we're trying to talk to a lot of people in this document. Here's someone who would no doubt would be an inspiration to our young people that we try to include along with others.
Right, that's right. All right, so if you want to read the document, which, again, Bishop Burbidge is encouraging you to read it just, for your own edification, to grow closer to God through the Eucharist and to truly appreciate this gift that we have, go to USCCB.org. They make it easy to find right there on the homepage. But other things were advanced. The causes of beatification and canonization for several individuals were promoted. Guidelines for socially responsible investing and other things as well. If you go to usccb.org, you can learn more about that. So, Bishop, we have Vespers coming up this Sunday. You're inviting all the faithful to it. Talk a little bit about why it's important that we gather in unity like this for Vespers to kick off this preparatory period.
Well, and again, it's the solemnity of our Lord Jesus Christ, King of the universe. What a beautiful way to us to say that, we are not ruled by the society norms and values and that are often so against our moral convictions and our truth that's Christ and his teachings that reign in our hearts and lives. So if we're getting ready to celebrate, prepare to begin to celebrate our Golden Jubilee, why not do so with the whole diocese represented? People of all ages, different parishes, different backgrounds, different cultures. And I'm thinking, if we're moving towards something, we're going to pray that our Jubilee year is just going to be such a time of blessings and renewal for the diocese and for all of us. Well, it's like any initiative. Let's get off to a good start then.
That's right.
So let's get off with a great start and participate together as the family in the Diocese of Arlington.
Yeah.
And what better way to begin than with the prayer?
I think of it like in a family, if mom and dad have their 50th wedding anniversary, everyone's going to show up. Everyone's going to want to be there. It's not just them celebrating it on their own. They've obviously impacted a lot of people. Right. Within the opening of this first preparatory year, we're going to begin devotions called 40 Hours, which you've been very excited about. You've been talking a lot about when you're going to parishes in different places. Talk about what 40 Hours is, because I think I had never heard of it, frankly, before. And you've asked each pastor to help participate in these 40 Hours devotions. So talk a little bit about that.
Right. So, one of my favorite saints, St. John Newman, the fourth Bishop of Philadelphia, brought this to his archdiocese. And it's exactly what it says, 40 hours, continuous hours of time before the Blessed Sacrament. Now, within that 40 hours, there's time for quiet, there's time for prayer, the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, there's talks. People can celebrate it in a variety of ways, but it's 40 hours of Eucharistic devotion and, inviting different groups of the parish. It's your hour before the Blessed Sacrament.
So you don't want each person to do 40 straight hours?
If you're up to it, there's no harm in it.
That's not the expectation.
That's for sure. So I've asked everyone during this first year of our preparation period, at some time between now and next November,
right,
to have a 40 hours devotion. And I know
at each parish,
every parish, and many of our parishes have already scheduled theirs. And I think we're going to be listing them on our website wherever they are. So think about that, everyone, that during this first year, with a focus on the Eucharist, there's going to be an opportunity for 40 hours devotion in all of our parishes. Bishop Welsh, so it's part of our history, right? We're celebrating. Bishop Welsh, our first bishop, also brought this practice to the diocese upon his arrival. So I think it's a great time to bring this beautiful devotion back to our diocese, especially when we're trying, not only as a conference of bishops, but as a local church in this Diocese of Arlington, to really re-energize people with Eucharistic wonder, reverence, and awe.
I found out this is 6 centuries old, that it started in Milan. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize it was a pretty ancient practice at that.
Yeah. And then a lot of times it concludes with a Eucharistic procession, through the streets of the parish or whatever.
That's very neat.
There's various ways to celebrate it. Each parish can do it.
And with Advent coming up, that would be a great opportunity for people to kind of make Advent really holy and to refocus. So if you would like to check out the 40 Hours devotion schedule, go to arlingtondiocese.org/40 Hours devotion schedule. That's FORTY for 40. Or just go to jubilee.arlingtondiocese.org and you can find the full schedule of what's available now. And we're going to keep updating it. You can go to your parishes. If your only time allows you to go to another parish, I'm sure they'll let you come there too. But it'd be a great way to kick off the Advent season, but also throughout this first year. Bishop, there was a draft memo was leaked from the Department of Health and Human Services that showed that they're considering undoing a critical religious liberty protection that was put in place in 2018. So it's fairly new, but it was really, we discussed that on the podcast at the time, I remember. Specifically, the Office of Civil Rights was granted the authority to conduct compliance reviews regarding the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. It was a very big deal because a lot of healthcare professionals were having their religious freedoms violated, and this helped protect them from that, and there was something put in place to ensure that it was actually RFRA, as it's called, Religious Freedom Restoration Act, was taking place. Now HHS is considering removing those protections. Religious freedom, particularly for those in the healthcare profession, is something you've talked about a lot. They're on the front lines, and they're in a lot of risk at this point, really. What is your response to this news?
Well, it's very disheartening. And until I just completed my term on the Religious Liberty Committee.
That's right.
On the Conference of Bishops, and we met on Sunday for over 3 hours, and lots of experts were in the room, talking about this very issue, but also, Billy, other threats that are on the horizon to our living, our faith, practicing our faith within the workplace. That rights that have been protected for so long really at risk here. I mean, it was at the end of the meeting. It was we really felt
pretty heavy.
It was very heavy.
Wow.
And it was very, very frightening. And so we cannot be naive here. In fact, we have to be the opposite. We have to be extremely vigilant. I know the Conference of Bishops is working hard, along with Catholic conferences throughout the country. I know it's certainly true here for the Virginia Catholic Conference. But, what we really have to work for is that the considerations of that you mentioned, that they remain in place, because, as you said, Catholic healthcare workers are at great risk of being fired or otherwise discriminated against simply for being faithful Catholics. So no person should be told to choose between the profession and the religion. So we have to speak up. We have to speak out. A couple ideas. First, mention this on social media. Another email, and call HHS to share your concern over this situation. You're going to be including other options, I know, in our own social media. But know that your voice matters. We must stand up for one another. Catholic healthcare workers right now especially deserve our support. And it's very, very sad that these people, and thanks to them, what a beautiful vocation to be an instrument of the Lord's healing love. And they gave their talents and their service and all the years of study and preparation to serve life, and now are being forced to do just the opposite. And the fact that this religious freedom, this religious liberty, is under attack is such a concern. And we are going, especially through the Virginia Catholic Conference and the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, really keep our people aware of specifically.
Absolutely.
This is what this means concretely. And so that we need vigilance, we need our voices to be heard, and we certainly need to be united in prayer.
Absolutely. Again, if you want to keep following that, USCCB.org, they've got good action alerts there, and also VACatholic.org for stuff that's going on here in the Commonwealth. Bishop, last thing I want to ask you about, it's something I saw in your calendar, and I don't think we've addressed it before, but on the eve of Thanksgiving, I think every year since you've come to this diocese, you've gone to Christ House, which is a men's shelter it's a shelter for homeless men in Alexandria, and help them with addiction and whatever else they've got going on. You go there, and then you serve meals to the people that come for dinner, in addition to those who are there, but those who come for a hot meal for Thanksgiving. This doesn't get much fanfare. We don't cover it. You actually, I think, kind of downplay that you go do this. But I wanted to ask why you do that, but also what's maybe the greatest lesson you've learned in going each year and serving these men in this way? Yeah,
and really for many, many, many years in this diocese, Christ House is sacred ground. Christ House is sacred ground. Every single day of the year, people are fed.
Absolutely.
And Christ House, and it's through very little staff and tremendous volunteers. But Billy, the beautiful part is it's all basically through volunteers who cook home-cooked meals.
Yeah.
So the meal is cooked with love, and it's served with love. People, pre-COVID, before certain protocols have to be in place now, but pre-COVID, the guests, not just the men living at Christ House, but other guests who are on the streets, who are hungry, come into Christ House. They're seated. They're seated at a table with a tablecloth and silverware, and they're presented the meal with volunteers. They're served, and there's engagement. There's conversation, because each of those persons has a face and has a story. Some of them were the volunteers at one point, but now are coming there for a meal. Because of some really, really difficult situations. So this says so much about the faithful in our diocese. We are not lacking for people volunteering to prepare the meals and to serve the meals. And I've heard many, many people when I visit Christ House just say there's no place like this. Here they feel loved. Here they see the face of Christ. Well, no surprise. That's what Christ taught us, right? Whatever you do for the least of my brothers and sisters, you actually do for me. But it's actually, it's the people, our guests who we welcome into Christ's house, who show us the face of Christ. And so for me, it's just a great, I just consider myself just to be on sacred ground. And one of the sisters who coordinates the schedules on things like that, she puts me right to work. She gives me that apron and she gives me my marching orders and let's go. Come on, Bishop, you don't have time to talk. Let's go. So, but Billy, it also gives me an opportunity to close by certainly wishing all in the Diocese of Arlington, your families, a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Certainly it's a time for us to be reminded of blessings that sometimes we do take for granted, the gift of life itself, our health, our family, our friends, the basic necessities of life, and all the goodness of which God surrounds us with each and every day, including the beauty of His creation and the gift of one another. It's beautiful in our Catholic Church is that our parishes on Thanksgiving Day, usually the masses are extremely well attended.
Yeah.
It's not a holy day of obligation.
I remember a priest mentioning that last
But
week.
I remember people saying, well, if you're going to celebrate Thanksgiving Day, should you not begin by thanking God? And what better way than the perfect act of thanksgiving, the holy sacrifice of the Mass? And it's also an opportunity for me to say in a sincere and heartfelt way my thanks to God for the privilege of serving in this beautiful Diocese of Arlington, and so thankful to all of you, my dear friends who are listening, and friends throughout our diocese for your goodness to me, for your prayers and support. Truly, you are a gift to me and to our diocese, and I wish all of you a very, very happy Thanksgiving, and pray that as we recognize that the Lord is the source of all good gifts, that together we will walk humbly with our God. Thank you for listening to the Walk Humbly podcast. Make sure you check out more episodes on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. You can follow me on Twitter at Bishop Burbidge, where I offer gospel reflections each morning and share photos and updates of what is going on in the Diocese of Arlington. Stay up to date with news, event information, and inspirational content by subscribing to our e-newsletter at arlingtondiocese.org.